Hello everyone. In this devlog I will be creating the terrain for this little weird game about an orange. Firstly we need to figure out what the terrain will look like. It needs to be finite, small, procedurally generated at the start of the game, and the terrain needs to be capable of having caves and overhangs. So, sounds very complicated and difficult to make. The standard way of creating terrain is generating a large subdivided 2D plane and offsetting the vertices in the y-axis based off some height maps. But for the overhangs and caves we need something stronger, like the marching cubes algorithm. The principle of this algorithm is quite simple actually. You have a grid of points in 3D space. These points have a value between 0, meaning off or air, and 1, meaning it is filled or ground. The algorithm looks at small cubes made up of 8 of these points, checks which corners are filled, and then consults a lookup table to determine how to create the correct triangles for that configuration. This way it builds a smooth mesh across the surface where the values change from filled to empty. The values itself are generated with the use of multiple stacked Berlin noise textures. And the result is a little chunk of terrain. Making a chunking system is very straightforward. We just need to offset the noise maps by each chunk coordinate. Now we have two parameters which can be randomly generated: the noise scale and the noise height. Unlike many other voxel games, I found that there was a need for vertical chunks as well. Generating a single chunk is already quite performance heavy, and it would be slow to make the chunks very high, especially for terrain deformation while the game is running. There was one problem, where the terrain looked a bit off. It had these giant spikes everywhere and I could not figure out why. But after recreating the whole noise generation part, it looked a lot nicer. At the start of the game currently freezes until the whole terrain has finished generating. So I split it up into multiple frames and added a nice progress bar. Yeah, I know, I'm not the best UI artist. What I also found very ugly was the flat shading on the terrain, meaning you can see the edges of each triangle. To fix this, I had to change the terrain mesh generation so it generated with shared vertices, which also reduces the vertex count and thereby speeds up the whole process. There are still edges visible between the chunks, but I leave that as it is for now. The terrain worked great, but it was still missing the overhangs, so I got to experiment a bit with 3D Berlin noise, which gave some funny results, and as you can see, there are already a few overhangs visible. It was really difficult to combine the 3D Berlin noise with the 2D Berlin noise. There are very smooth caves generated, but the surface itself is blocky. But after a few attempts, I finally got it working, and the last thing I quickly wanted to add was a way to change the generation values while playing the game. So I added a little menu for that. And you can actually test it out for yourself. I published the little demo on my itch.io page. You can play it on macOS, Linux or Windows, and you can find the link for that in the description. I would love to hear all your ideas and feedbacks about this. See you guys in the next devlog.